Lieutenant Commander Li Huan pushed through the crowded entrance of the Red Moon Cantina, his military-trained eyes automatically scanning for threats. The establishment buzzed with the usual mix of alien species, Deltans with their crystalline skin catching the neon lights, slender Zephyrians nursing glowing drinks, and burly Krex traders haggling over cargo manifests. After 6 months of deep space operations, the familiar chaos of New Geneva Station felt almost comforting. The cantina's atmosphere was thick with alien pheromones and the sweet smoke of Elterian incense. Holographic dancers swayed above the main floor while a 3-armed vegan bartender mixed cocktails that changed colors. Huang ordered a simple earth whiskey and found a corner booth where he could observe the crowd. Old habits from his sniper training. Always watch the exits. Always know who's armed. Always be ready. He'd barely taken his first sip when the trouble started. The cantina's main doors exploded inward with a thunderous crash. 3 figures in battle-scarred armor stormed through the smoke and debris. Vorthan mercenaries, easily recognizable by their blue-tinged skin and the distinctive ridge patterns across their skulls. Air plasma rifles hummed with lethal energy, casting an eerie purple glow across their angular faces. Everyone on the ground. The lead Vorthan lord, his voice amplified by his helmet speakers. This establishment now owes tribute to the Crimson Brotherhood. Panic erupted instantly. Diltons shrieked in harmonious terror while Krex traders dove behind overturned tables. The holographic dancers flickered and disappeared as the entertainment system automatically shut down. Glasses shattered as patrons scrambled for cover, their various alien languages creating a babble of fear. Huang's enhanced reflexes kicked in before his conscious mind fully processed the threat. Years of military conditioning had hardwired his responses: identify hostiles, assess civilian casualties, neutralize threats with minimal collateral damage. His whiskey glass hit the table as he rolled sideways, using the booth's thick plasteel construction as cover. The second Vorthan kicked over a table where a family of Deltans huddled together. Their young offspring, no bigger than a human child, whimpered as crystalline tears streamed down its translucent cheeks. Pay up or watch your spawn die slowly, the mercenary snarled, pressing his rifle's barrel against the child's head. That's when Huang's military training fully engaged. He'd just returned from Operation Silent Thunder, a classified mission that had taken him to the edge of known space. For 3 weeks, he'd hunted the notorious Crimson Fleet pirates through asteroid fields and nebula clouds. His final shot, a plasma round fired from 12 kilometers away through the vacuum of space, had eliminated their flagship's captain and ended a war before it could begin. The mission earned him a commendation he couldn't talk about and saved 3-star systems from invasion. But this wasn't space combat. This was close quarters with innocent lives at stake. Stay down and don't move. One called to the terrified Deltan family, his voice cutting through the chaos with calm authority. The first Vorthan was scanning the crowd when Huang struck, moving with the fluid grace that came from years of zero-gravity combat training. The human warrior flowed between overturned tables like water finding its path. His combat knife, a monomolecular blade sharp enough to cut through titanium, appeared in his hand as if materialized from thin air. The Vorthan's armor was military-grade, designed to stop plasma bolts and explosive rounds, but Huang no armor. Better than most, every suit had weak points, joints, seals, bowel connections. His blade found the gap between neck guard and helmet, sliding through synthetic muscle and alien biology with surgical precision. The mercenary dropped without a sound, his weapon clattering across the cantina floor. The second Vorthan spun round, plasma rifle tracking toward the movement. But Huang was already gone. The human's enhanced reflexes, a gift from military augmentation, Procedures let him perceive time differently in combat situations. What seemed like lightning-fast action to others felt like a carefully choreographed dance to him. His strike hit the rifle's power core with mechanical precision. The weapon's energy cell overloaded in a shower of sparks and smoke, rendering it harmless. Before the alien could process what happened, Juan's follow-up punch connected with devastating force. Vorthan physiology might be tougher than human, but they still had the same vulnerable nerve clusters. The mercenary crumpled, gasping for breath. The third Vorthan reacted faster than his companions. In one smooth motion, he grabbed the nearest hostage, a young human woman who'd been quietly nursing a drink at the bar. Her scream cut through the air as the alien's massive arm wrapped round her throat. "Back off." "Human scum," the Vorthan snarled, pressing his rifle against the woman's temple. "One more step and I paint the walls with her brains." Juan froze, his mind instantly calculating angles and possibilities. The hostage's position made a direct assault impossible. Too much risk of collateral damage. But his sniper training had taught him that every problem had a solution. You could see all the variables. His eyes locked onto a half-full glass sitting on the bar. Heavy crystal. Probably imported from Earth. Perfect weight. Perfect size. Without breaking eye contact with the Vorthan, Juan palmed the glass and evaluated the throw. Distance, 4 meters. Target, the alien's weapon hand. Margin for error, 0. The glass left his hand with the same precision that had made him the most feared sniper in the Terran Navy. It struck the Vorthan's wrist exactly where intended. The impact sending jolts of pain through alien nerve endings. The mercenary's grip loosened involuntarily, and the hostage broke free. Before the Vorthan could recover, Juan closed the distance. His first strike hit the alien's solar plexus, doubling him over. The second targeted a pressure point behind, the left ear. The third was an uppercut that lifted the mercenary off his feet before depositing him unconscious on the cantina floor. Silence fell like a curtain. Then, slowly, the surviving patrons began to emerge from their hiding places. The Deltan child ran to its parents, babbling in crystalline tones of gratitude. The human hostage steadied herself against the bar, her hands shaking but her eyes bright with life. "Thank you," she whispered. "They would have killed us all." The cantina erupted in cheers and alien expressions of gratitude. Krex traders pounded, their massive fists on tables in approval. Deltans chimed in harmonious celebration. Even the stoic Zephyrian showed their appreciation through subtle color changes in their skin patterns. But the celebration died abruptly as the main doors burst open again. This time, it was station security. 6 officers in riot gear, weapons drawn and ready for action. Their leader, a massive Gothic with scarred hide and cold yellow eyes, surveyed the scene with obvious disgust. "Freeze. Nobody moves," the Gothic bellowed, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. Juan slowly raised his hands, keeping his movements calm and non-threatening. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Li Huan, Terran Navy," he said clearly, reaching slowly for his identification badge. "These mercenaries were threatening civilians. I acted to protect innocent lives." The Gothic's scarred face twisted into a sneer of contempt. "Another human with fake credentials," he growled, not even glancing at the offered identification. "You aliens are all the same, always pretending to be something you're not." "Wait, you don't understand," Juan began. But the security chief cut him off with a gesture. "I understand perfectly. 3 Vorthan citizens are down, and there's a human standing over them with a weapon. Case closed." The Gothic motioned to his subordinates. "Cuff him." Energy shackles materialized round Juan's wrists, restraints designed for beings 3 times human strength and density. The metal bit deep, sending jolts of pain through his enhanced nervous system. These weren't standard rest restraints, they were punishment devices designed to cause suffering. "You're under arrest for aggravated assault on superior beings," the Gothic announced with obvious satisfaction. "Maybe a few months in detention will teach you humans to know your place." As they dragged him toward the exit, Juan caught sight of the faces he'd saved. The Delton family watched with obvious distress, their child reaching out tiny crystalline hands toward him. The human woman he'd rescued had tears in her eyes. Even the alien bartender looked troubled by the injustice unfolding before them. But Juan remained calm. He'd been in worse situations than this, much worse, during the Battle of Kepler's Edge. He'd been trapped behind enemy lines for 2 weeks with nothing but his rifle and determination. He'd survived that. He'd survive this, too, as the security team hauled him through the cantina doors. One thought echoed through his mind. The galaxy was about to learn that some humans were far more dangerous than they appeared. The detention bee. Locke's heavy doors slammed shut behind Juan, with a sound that echoed through the corridors like a death knell. The air inside was thick with the smell of alien disinfectant, a harsh chemical mixture that burned human nostrils and made breathing uncomfortable. Beneath that artificial scent lay something worse, the unmistakable odor of despair that clung to every prison in the galaxy. Juan's cell was a cramped rectangle of reinforced steel, barely large enough for a human to lie down. The walls hummed with energy fields designed to contain beings far stronger than baseline humans. A single light panel cast harsh shadows that seemed to move and shift with each flicker. In the corner, a basic sanitation unit and a narrow sleeping platform completed the sparse accommodations. But what caught Juan's attention wasn't the primitive conditions. It was the voices coming from nearby cells. Human voices, speaking in familiar Earth languages mixed with the universal trade tongue. Another day in paradise. Came a bitter laugh from the cell to his left. "You must be the new guy. I'm Park Minho, formerly a licensed trader until the hegemony decided humans weren't allowed to compete fairly anymore." Juan positioned himself near the energy barrier that served as his cell door. Through the crackling blue field, he could see other prisoners in similar cages lining both sides of the corridor. Most were human, though he spotted a few other species that the hegemony considered inferior. A thin Arcturian with wilted tentacles. A young Rigelian whose normally bright scales had faded to dull gray. "What's your story?" asked another voice, this one belonging to a middle-aged human woman in the cell across from him. "I'm Kim Sora, former cultural attaché to the vegan colonies. My crime was teaching alien children about human literature. Apparently, exposing young minds to Shakespeare and Hemingway constitutes cultural contamination." The woman's voice carried the refined accent of someone educated in the core worlds. But Juan could hear the steel beneath her diplomatic tone. These weren't random civilians caught in bureaucratic mistakes. These were professionals, people who'd built their lives working with alien species, only to find themselves branded as criminals by the very beings they'd tried to help. "They got me on unauthorized mechanical intervention," chimed in a gruff voice from further down the corridor. "Name's Choi Dae-ho. I fixed a Krex freighter's fusion drive when it was about to go critical. Saved 300 lives, including a bunch of hegemony officials. My reward, 6 months in here for practicing engineering without proper alien supervision." As the hours passed, more stories emerged from the darkness. Li Ji-won, a xenobiologist, rested for discovering a cure to a plague affecting Delton colonies. Her research apparently threatened pharmaceutical monopolies. Nam Hayek, a pilot who'd rescued survivors from a space station disaster, charged with unauthorized entry into restricted space. Shin Mai-rei, a teacher who'd established schools on frontier worlds. accused of spreading human supremacist ideology by teaching basic literacy. Each story painted the same picture: humans being systematically targeted across hegemony space. What had started as isolated incidents of discrimination had evolved into something far more sinister: an organized campaign to remove human influence from alien society. The patterns, too consistent to be coincidence, Saw observed during one of their whispered conversations. Someone's coordinating this. The question is why. Juan listened to everything, his trained mind cataloging details and connections. These weren't just random rests. They were strategic moves designed to eliminate humans who'd gained respect and influence among alien populations: teachers, healers, engineers, diplomats, all the people who proved that humanity deserved an equal place in galactic society. "What about you?" Deho asked during their second day of confinement. "What terrible crime did you commit against our alien overlords?" Juan was quiet for a long moment, considering how much to reveal. His military training emphasized operational security. But these people deserved to know they weren't alone in their fight against injustice. "I stopped war," he said simply. The corridor fell silent. Then Minho's voice cut through the darkness with sharp interest. "What kind of war?" "The kind that would have killed millions," Juan replied. 3-star systems were about to fall to pirates. I made sure that didn't happen. What he didn't tell them was the full scope of Operation Silent Thunder. How he'd tracked the Crimson Fleet through 7 systems, gathering intelligence on their battle plans. How he'd infiltrated their command ship disguised as a maintenance worker. How his final shot, fired from an impossible distance through the ship's viewport, had eliminated their fleet admiral and sent the entire armada into chaotic retreat. The mission had earned him commendations from 5 different species and prevented a conflict that could have destabilized an entire sector, but explaining that would raise questions he couldn't answer without revealing classified information. Meanwhile, 40,000 kilometers away in the cold darkness of space, the Terran Navy destroyer Indomitable maintained its patrol route through the neutral zone, the ship's bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as Captain Kang Tae-young reviewed daily reports. His crew worked with the precision that came from months of deep space operations, but there was an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been there yesterday. Communications Officer Yoon Ji-ho sat at his station, monitoring subspace channels with growing concern. For the past 18 hours, he'd been trying to establish contact with Commander Huang for his scheduled check-in. The silence was becoming impossible to ignore. "Sir," Ji-ho called softly, not wanting to alarm the rest of the bridge crew. Still no response from Commander Huang. "He's now 22 hours overdue." Captain Tae-young felt ice form in his stomach. In 15 years of military service, he'd never known Huang to miss a scheduled communication. The man was obsessively punctual, a trait that had saved both their lives more times than either cared to count. "Last known position?" Tae-young asked, though he already knew the answer. "New Geneva Station, sir." He was granted 48 hours shore leave after completing Operation Silent Thunder. The captain's jaw tightened. New Geneva was nominally neutral territory, but recent intelligence reports suggested growing anti-human sentiment among station security forces. If something had happened to Huang there, "Sir," Ji-ho prompted quietly. Tae-young made his decision. "Open a priority channel to Admiral Lim, full encryption." As Ji-ho's fingers danced across his communication console, Tae-young stared out at the stars and felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. He'd served alongside Li Huan through 3 major conflicts and dozens of smaller operations. They'd watched each other's backs through alien jungles and space battles, shared drinks in countless cantinas across the galaxy. More importantly, Huan wasn't just any officer. He was the most decorated sniper in the Terran Navy. a man whose service record was so classified that even Taeyang didn't know all the details. His missions had prevented wars, toppled dictatorships, and saved countless lives. If someone had captured or killed him, Admiral Lim on secure channel, "Sir," Jiho reported, "Admiral." Taeyang said as the older man's weathered face appeared on the main screen. "We have a problem." Back in the detention block, Huang continued listening to his fellow prisoners' stories, but part of his mind was calculating timelines. His check-in was now overdue. Soon, very soon, people would start looking for him, and when they found him, the beings responsible for this injustice would learn that some humans were far more dangerous than they appeared. The galaxy was about to discover that taking prisoners was easy. Keeping them was another matter entirely. Admiral Lim Hyun-woo sat in his private office aboard the massive space station Harmony base. Surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet movements across 3 sectors, the coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago as he worked through intelligence reports from the frontier worlds. At 62, Lim had spent most of his life in space, and the lines round his eyes told the story of countless battles fought in the darkness between stars. The priority alert chimed with an urgency that made his blood freeze. Only a handful of people in the galaxy had access to that particular communication channel, and they never used it unless someone was about to die. The message appeared in burning red letters across his main display. Commander Li Huan, missing. Last known location, New Geneva Station. Immediate response required. Lim's coffee mug shattered against the floor as he shot to his feet. Everything else in the room, the tactical reports, the budget reviews, the diplomatic correspondence, became meaningless background noise. Li Huan wasn't just another officer. He was the most dangerous human alive, and arguably the most valuable military asset in the Terran Navy. The Admiral's hands moved automatically across his command console, pulling up Huan's service record. What appeared on screen was mostly black bars and classified stamps, but the few details visible told an incredible story. 3 major conflicts, 47 confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 10 kilometers, 5 separate occasions where his actions had prevented full-scale wars, Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, the Stellar Cross for extraordinary valor, but those were just the missions that could be. Declassified, Lim knew there were others, operations so secret that their very existence was denied by 3 different governments. He remembered the debriefing after the Kepler's Ed incident, when Huan had walked into a room full of generals and alien dignitaries with blood still on his uniform and calmly reported that the crisis was over. "Sir," came a voice from the doorway. Lieutenant Commander Park Sun-ho, his aide, stood at attention with obvious concern on his face. The young officer had served under Lim for 2 years, and had never seen the Admiral look so. "Grim, get me a direct line to General Song," Lim ordered, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Maximum encryption. Tell her it's about the ghost." The ghost. That's what enemy forces called Li Huan. A phantom who could appear anywhere, eliminate high-value targets from impossible distances, and vanish without a trace. Intelligence reports from hostile alien species were filled with references to the mysterious human who had single-handedly derailed their military operations. Some claimed he could walk through walls. Others insisted he could see through time itself. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Huan was just that good at his job. While Park worked frantically at the communication console, Lim pulled up tactical data on New Geneva Station. The facility was technically neutral territory, but recent reports suggested growing anti-human sentiment among the security forces. If they'd arrested Huan, they had no idea what they'd gotten themselves into. General Som on secure channel. "Sir," Park reported. The holographic projector flickered to life. revealing a woman in her mid-50s with steel grey hair and eyes like winter storms. General Song Myung was the highest-ranking human in the Interspecies Defense Coalition, a position she'd earned through 3 decades of military service and diplomatic brilliance. She was also one of the few people in the galaxy who knew the full extent of Li Huan's capabilities. "Admiral," she said without preamble, "what's the situation?" "Commander Huan has been arrested by hegemony forces on New Geneva Station," Lim replied, watching Song's expression carefully. "They're charging him with assault on alien civilians." A long pause stretched between them, filled with the weight of shared knowledge. Song's face remained perfectly composed, but Lim could see the calculations running behind her eyes. She was thinking about what this meant not just for one man, but for the delicate balance of power that kept the galaxy from tearing itself apart. "The Commander Huan," she asked quietly. "Affirmative. From what we can gather, he defended civilians from Vorthan mercenaries and was arrested for it. The station security forces are treating him like a common criminal." Song's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. When she spoke again, her voice carried the kind of cold fury that had made enemy admirals surrender rather than face her in battle. "Those fools have no idea what they've done," she said. "Huan isn't just a soldier. He's a symbol. Every human in the galaxy knows his name, even if they don't know his face. He's proof that we belong among the stars, that we can stand as equals with beings who've been spacefaring for millennia." Lim nodded grimly. "The political implications are staggering. If word gets out that the hegemony is arresting decorated human officers on trumped-up charges, it won't just be politics," Song interrupted. "It'll be war. The frontier colonies have been waiting for an excuse to break away from hegemony control. This could be the spark that sets the entire sector ablaze." The general turned away from the camera, and Lim could see her staring out at the stars through the viewport of her command ship. When she turned back, her decision was written across her face in lines of steel and determination. "Prep the Third Fleet," she ordered. "I'm going to New Geneva personally, General." "Are you sure that's wise?" The diplomatic ramifications of leaving our best officer to rot in an alien jail are far worse. Song cut him off. "Besides, this isn't just about Huan anymore. Every human in that detention block is there because they had the audacity to excel at their jobs. They're teachers, doctors, engineers, people who've spent their lives proving that humanity deserves respect. If we abandon them now, we abandon everything we stand for." As the communication ended, Song turned to her own aide, a young woman who'd been listening to the conversation with growing alarm. Lieutenant Bai Suzy had joined the general's staff, fresh from the academy, full of idealistic dreams about peaceful cooperation between species. The last few minutes had been a harsh introduction to the realities of galactic politics. "Ma'am," Bai said carefully, "the Third Fleet is our most powerful naval force. Deploying it to New Geneva could be seen as an act of aggression." Song's smile was sharp as a blade. "Lieutenant, let me tell you something about Li Huan. 5 years ago, he prevented the complete annihilation of the Regelian homeworld by eliminating a terrorist cell that had stolen antimatter weapons. 3 years ago, he single-handedly stopped a hegemony fleet from massacring human colonists on Kepler Prime. Last year, he saved the lives of 200,000 beings during the vegan crisis." She paused, letting those numbers sink in. "The aliens who arrested him have no idea they're holding a man who saved more lives than most armies, but they're about to learn." Song walked to the viewport, looking out at the sleek warships of the Third Fleet, dreadnoughts and cruisers. Destroyers and fighters, the most advanced military hardware humanity had ever created, ships. Crewed by men and women who'd follow her into the heart of a black hole if she asked. "Send a message to all ship commanders," she ordered. "Tell them we're going to collect our people." And Lieutenant, "Yes, General. Make sure they understand. This isn't just a rescue mission. This is a statement. The galaxy needs to know that humans protect their own, no matter the cost." As klaxons began sounding throughout the fleet, crews rushed to battle stations with grim determination. They didn't know all the details of the mission, but they knew enough. One of their own was in trouble, and they were going to bring him home. In the cold depths of space, the Third Fleet began to move, 47 ships of the line, carrying enough firepower to level a planet. All focused on one goal: rescuing a single human from an alien jail. The hegemony was about to learn that some prisoners were more dangerous than others. Station Commander Vexthal reclined in his luxurious quarters, savoring a plate of imported Deltan sea fruits while reviewing the day's rest reports. The reptilian hegemony officer took particular pleasure in the growing number of humans being detained across his station. Each rest felt like a small victory in what he saw as the natural order reasserting itself, inferior species learning their place beneath their alien superiors. His quarters reflected his status and species. The walls were lined with heat lamps that kept the temperature at a comfortable 40 degrees Celsius. Trophies from various worlds decorated shelves round the room. Skulls from predators he'd hunted, crystalline formations from mining operations he'd overseen, and several human artifacts he'd confiscated over the years. A bottle of genuine Earth whiskey sat prominently on his desk, a prize he'd taken from a human trader who'd resisted arrest. The evening news played softly on his personal screen, showing reports of increased human activity in the outer systems. Vexthal dismissed it as propaganda. Humans were useful as laborers and technicians, but they lacked the natural superiority of established galactic civilizations. The recent rests were simply necessary corrections to maintain proper social order. That's when every alarm on New Geneva station began screaming at once. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of warning klaxons, emergency beacons, and automated voice systems, all blaring in different alien languages. Vexthal's smell scattered across the floor as he lurched to his feet, his cold-blooded reflexes slower than he would have liked. His quarters door burst open without warning. His aide, a nervous Krelian named Zixtel, stumbled through the entrance with his forearms flailing in panic. The insectoid being's compound eyes were wide with terror, and his natural bioluminescence was flashing in rapid, chaotic patterns that indicated extreme distress. "Commander, we have a situation." Zixtel chittered, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. "What kind of situation?" Vexthal demanded, though the sinking feeling in his stomach suggested he already knew it wasn't going to be good news, though. "The Terran Third Fleet just dropped out of hyperspace," Zixtel stammered, his forehands gesturing wildly. "They're surrounding the station, 47 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts and a command carrier. They have us completely boxed in." Vexthal felt his reptilian blood turn to ice water. The Third Fleet wasn't just any human naval formation. It was their most elite force, commanded by officers who'd earned their ranks in the bloodiest conflicts of the past century. These weren't the soft traders and diplomats he was used to bullying. These were warriors. "Show me," he ordered, his voice cracking slightly. The main wall screen flickered to life, displaying the tactical view from the station's external sensors. What Vexthal saw made his legs nearly give out beneath him. The Third Fleet had ranged itself in a perfect sphere around New Geneva Station, every weapon system trained inward. The ships were close enough that he could see their hull markings through the magnified display. Names like Indomitable, retribution. And Nemesis painted in bold letters across vessels that bristled with enough firepower to glass her. Planet at the center of the formation sat the flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed everything else in the system. The Valkyria was a legend among military circles, a ship that had spearheaded humanity's most decisive victories. Just seeing it hanging in space like a metallic predator made Vexthal's survival instincts scream. "Warnings! Incoming transmission," Zixtel announced, his voice barely above a whisper. The tactical display dissolved, replaced by the bridge of the human flagship. Vexthal had seen Terran ship interiors before. But this was different. Everything was clean, efficient, and purposeful. No decorative elements. No displays of wealth or status, just the tools of war operated by beings who understood their deadly purpose. At the center of the bridge stood a woman in an immaculate uniform that seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it, for stars gleamed on her collar like miniature suns, and her eyes held the kind of cold intelligence that had toppled empires. General Song Mian looked directly into the camera with the confidence of someone who'd never. "Last day, battle, Station Commander Vexthal," she said, her voice carrying across the light years with perfect clarity. "This is General Song Mian of the Terran Defense Force. You are harboring one of our officers under false charges. Release him immediately." Vexthal's mouth moved soundlessly for several seconds before words finally emerged. "General, we arrested a violent human who attacked 3 Vothan citizens. Standard procedure requires. You arrested Lieutenant Commander Li Huan." Song interrupted, her voice dropping to a temperature that could freeze hydrogen. "The man who single-handedly eliminated the Crimson Fleet. The soldier who saved your homeworld from invasion during the Regelian crisis. The officer whose service record is so classified that mentioning it would violate 12 interstellar treaties." The blood drained from Vexthal's face as the implications hit him. He'd heard whispers about the human they called the Ghost, stories that seemed too incredible to believe. Tales of impossible shots made across impossible distances, of entire enemy fleets neutralized by a single operative, of wars ended before they could begin. He dismissed them as human propaganda. "But now, I didn't know," he whispered. "Ignorance is not an excuse," Song replied. "You will release Commander Huan and all other human prisoners immediately. Consider this your only warning." Vexthal tried to muster some semblance of authority. "General, this station operates under hegemony law. You have no jurisdiction here. My Marines are already aboard your station," Song said calmly, as if summoned by her words. Explosions echoed through the detention block 15 levels below. The sound of tearing metal and shouting voices carried through the station's ventilation system like the approach of an unstoppable storm in the detention block. The blast doors that had seemed so impregnable moments before simply ceased to exist. Where solid durasteel had stood, there was now a gaping hole filled with smoke and the red glow of cooling metal. Through that breach came figures that looked like something from a nightmare, Terran Marines in full combat armor. The Marines moved with mechanical precision, their powered armor making them look like walking tanks. Each suit was a masterpiece of human engineering, servo-assisted joints that multiplied strength tenfold, energy shields that could deflect plasma bolts, and enough built-in weapons to level a building. Their helmets were featureless except for glowing optical sensors that tracked every movement in the detention block. "Stand down," barked Sergeant Nam Wujin, his voice amplified by his suit's speakers until it sounded like the voice of an angry god. "By order of General Song, this facility is now under Terran authority. The alien gods, creatures from half a dozen different species who'd seemed so confident when bullying helpless prisoners, now cowered against the walls, their weapons, designed to subdue civilians, seemed laughably inadequate against military-grade combat armor. One guard, a Gorvik twice the size of a normal human, tried to raise his plasma rifle. Nam's suit responded faster than organic reflexes. Could follow. A pulse of electromagnetic energy disabled the weapon before the alien could even aim it. A second pulse knocked him unconscious and deposited him gently on the floor. "Prisoners, identify yourselves," Nam commanded, though his tone had shifted from threatening to protective. "Li-Hwan." "Lieutenant Commander, Terran Navy," came the calm reply from the first cell. Kim Sora, cultural attaché, called another voice. Hog Minho, licensed trader, added a third. One by one, the human prisoners identified themselves. Each name was verified against the Marines' database. Each person confirmed as a target for extraction as the energy barriers dissolved round their cells. Nam felt a surge of pride. These weren't just random civilians. They were the best humanity had to offer. Teachers, healers, engineers, and warriors who dedicated their lives to proving that humans deserved respect among the stars, back in his quarters. Vexthal watched his security monitors with growing horror as his station was systematically occupied by human forces. Marines moved through corridors with practiced efficiency, securing key systems and establishing control points. His own security forces surrendered without firing a shot. Recognizing the futility of resistance, "Commander," Zixtal whispered, "what do we do?" Vexthal stared at the screen showing General Son's implacable face and realized he had only one option left. The reptilian officer's survival instincts finally overcame his pride. "Prepare an immediate surrender," he said quietly, "and pray they're feeling merciful." The energy barrier around Huan's cell flickered and died with a soft electronic whine. After days of confinement, the sudden absence of the crackling blue field felt like stepping from a storm into sunlight. The heavy restraints round his wrists deactivated with metallic clicks, falling to the detention block floor with sounds that echoed through the corridor-like liberation bells. General Song Miyang stood in the doorway, her presence filling the small space with an aura of absolute authority. The 4 stars on her collar caught the harsh prison lighting, but it was her eyes that commanded attention, steel gray and burning with carefully controlled fury. Behind her, 2 Terran Marines in full combat armor stood like armored statues, their weapons ready but pointed safely away from the prisoners. "Commander," Song said, her voice carrying the warmth reserved for valued soldiers. "Are you injured?" Huan stood slowly, working feeling back into his hands as circulation returned. The alien restraints had been designed to cause pain, but his enhanced physiology had endured worse during his military augmentation procedures. "No, General, thank you for the extraction." Song's expression remained professionally neutral, but one could read the fury burning behind her composed facade. They'd served together long enough that he recognized the signs, the slight tightening round her eyes, the way her hands remained perfectly still to avoid betraying emotion. Someone was going to pay dearly for this insult. "The Hegemony Council will be hearing about this incident," she said quietly. "What you did here, saving those civilians in the cantina, it's exactly what we've come to expect from you. It's what makes you the soldier you are." As they walked through the station's corridors toward the main docking bay, Huan noticed the dramatic change in atmosphere. Alien civilians and security personnel pressed themselves against walls as they passed, their various species expressions all showing the same emotions, newfound respect mixed with healthy fear. Word was spreading through the station's communication networks about who he really was. A group of Deltan traders whispered among themselves in their crystalline language, their translucent skin glowing with excitement. Huan caught fragments of their conversation, something about the ghost and Sadar colonies. Further down the corridor, a cluster of Zephyrian diplomats watched him pass with the kind of Reverence usually reserved for religious figures, the main docking bay was a massive space designed to accommodate ships from dozens of different species. Normally it bustled with activity as traders, diplomats, and travelers moved between vessels. Today it was eerily quiet, with most aliens keeping to the shadows and watching the unfolding drama with nervous anticipation. Station Commander Vexthal waited near the primary airlock, his reptilian form visibly trembling despite his attempt to maintain dignity. Sweat glistened on his scaled hide, and his yellow eyes darted nervously between Song and the armed marines surrounding them. His aide, the insectoid Krillian, hovered nearby with all four arms wrapped round a data pad as if it could somehow protect him from the consequences of their actions. General Song, Vexthal began, his voice cracking with strain. Please accept my deepest apologies. We had no idea who we were dealing with. If we had known Commander Horn's true identity, Commander Horn has prevented more wars than most diplomats ever see. Song interrupted, her voice cutting through his excuses like a plasma blade through armor. His actions have saved millions of lives across dozens of species. He's earned commendations from governments that refuse to even acknowledge each other's existence, and you arrested him for protecting innocent civilians from armed criminals. The general stepped closer to Vexthal, and the reptilian commander actually took a step backward. You want to know what he really did during Operation Silent Thunder? He tracked the Crimson Fleet through 7 star systems, infiltrated their command ship alone, and eliminated their leadership structure with a single shot that prevented a sector-wide war. The 3 systems he saved included your home world, Vexthal's legs nearly gave out beneath him. The Crimson Fleet had been poised to invade hegemony space when their mysterious disappearance had saved billions of lives. He'd never known that a single human had been responsible for ending that threat. Song activated the station's general communication system, her voice carrying to every level and every species aboard New Geneva. Let this be a lesson, too. All who would harm humans under our protection. We are not the weak species you believe us to be. We are the ones who stand between civilization and chaos. We are the ones who fight when others cannot, and we will always come for our own. Throughout the station, the message was received and understood. In the cantinas and trading posts, aliens who had witnessed Horn's rest now understood they'd seen something historic. The human they'd watched being dragged away in chains was a legend, a warrior whose actions had shaped the very galaxy they lived in. Back in the detention block, the other human prisoners were being processed for release. Park Min-ho emerged from his cell with his head held high, no longer the defeated trader who'd been arrested for unfair competition. Kim Sora walked with the dignified bearing of someone who knew her worth, her diplomatic training serving her well even in these circumstances. Choi Dae-ho cracked his knuckles and grinned, already planning his return to the mechanical work he loved. Each released prisoner represented something larger than themselves, proof that humans had earned their place among the stars through skill, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to doing what was right. They were teachers who had educated alien children, doctors who had healed alien diseases, engineers who had built the infrastructure that connected star systems, sir. Huan said quietly to General Song, as they watched the procession of freed humans permission to return to active duty. For the first time since arriving at New Geneva Station, Song allowed herself to smile. It transformed her face, replacing the mask of military authority with genuine warmth and pride. Granted, Commander, the galaxy needs more humans like you. As the Terran Third Fleet prepared to depart, their massive ships beginning the slow process of disengaging from the station, news of the incident was already spreading across subspace communication networks. Alien journalists transmitted reports to their homeworlds. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent messages. Trading posts and frontier settlements shared the story of the day a human sniper was rested for saving lives, and a 4-star general came to collect him. In the weeks that followed, the effects rippled through hegemony's space like waves from a dropstone. Alien officials who had been planning discriminatory policies against humans quietly shelved their proposals. Station commanders across the sector reviewed their arrest procedures and found excuses to release human prisoners who'd been detained on questionable charges. The story grew with each telling. In some versions, Juan had defeated the Vorthan mercenaries with his bare hands. In others, he'd used mysterious human technology to render their weapons useless. But the core truth remained constant. When innocents were threatened, humans stepped forward to protect them, regardless of species or personal cost. Lieutenant Commander Leon returned to his duties aboard the destroyer Indomitable, where Captain Taeyong greeted him with relief and barely concealed pride. The mission briefings resumed. The classified operations continued. And the galaxy's most dangerous human went back to the work of preventing wars before they could begin. But something had changed in the broader galactic community. In diplomatic meetings, human representatives found themselves treated with new respect. In trade negotiations, the assumption of human weakness had vanished. In the dark spaces between stars where pirates and criminals operated, word spread that attacking humans brought consequences far beyond what their appearance might suggest. The galaxy was indeed a little safer that day, and for the first time in generations. It was also a little more aware that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their ships. It was their unwavering commitment to protecting the innocent and standing by their own, no matter the odds or the cost. From the bridge of his flagship as it jumped to hyperspace, Juan looked out at the stars and smiled. Sometimes the most important battles weren't fought with rifles and explosives, but with courage and principle. Today, humanity had won both kinds of victory. The end.